Today on Core Conversations, we have DJ starting from scratch. It didn't exactly go how I thought it would. You see, I thought that we would talk about the service industry and then we draw parallels between the fitness industry and the entertainment industry. I would ask him questions about how he became revered as one of the top 100 in the music industry, and maybe he dropped some names and we talk about Russell Peters or where he's been on tours. Instead, we talked about his initiatives like the Show Must Go On initiative. We talked about his family and mental health, mental wellness, and he candidly shared his stories of how he battles with this. If you have anyone in your family that has any mental health challenges, this emotional core conversation show is for you. In a sense, we're all wounded healers, and Mark heals with his music while he continues to win in his own personal battles. Enjoy the conversation.
Cool that they all agreed without even
Yes.
really knowing what they were agreeing for. They just agreed on the premise that it was me asking them. So I thought
Right.
that was really cool and it was
Good.
really special.
Yes. Sort of
Yeah.
like this conversation right now.
Yeah. It is though. I
Yeah.
like anybody that asks if the time permits, I'm always down to do this.
What's going on, man?
Morning, morning, morning.
Good morning, sir.
How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for coming on
Of
with me.
course, of course, of course.
And yeah, so you'll see your people will start to pop up here on the comment section too. So
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
as they do, if you have any questions, feel free to answer them, and we'll kind of weave that into the conversation.
Your channel, your lead. I follow. You ask, I answer.
Well, it's funny because like with this, every time I start talking with people about these conversations, I say like it's a conversation, it's not an interview.
Yeah,
So
yeah, 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 of course.
I love that it just flows where it needs to go, and yeah, man,
Absolutely.
it's good. So you were doing some of these conversations as well for a while,
Started
right?
with I did the mental health talks first,
Mhm.
which is my initiative called The Show Must Go On.
Yes,
And I just did it I just felt people needed something else out of me that rather than just me standing there playing music all the time.
yes,
Because you get inundated with that stuff all the time, right? And
right,
it's always like kind of what people expect and demand from you. So
right,
I always like to shift the gears on that kind of stuff. And it's
absolutely.
also obviously within the situation we're in. I felt it was super important to give people something else. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
um, just a different alternative for me too. I needed to clear my head. So I did the mental health talks for 2 weeks, and then I wanted to change it up that narrative a little bit too. Because again, as great as the mental health talks are and as positive as they can be, there's also a negative tone that comes with it sometimes, and it turns into COVID talks and turns into quarantine talks, and
Yes,
that can get very not only monotonous, but it can also bring you down to a darker level. So I wanted to
Mhm.
change it up again,
Yes,
and I started up another talk called Pioneers, which is something I've been wanting to do for a while, which
yes,
was basically the premise of just shining light on people that have been influential to me throughout, and I know thousands to millions more throughout. And there's a lot of people that don't necessarily get that light shined on them, and
absolutely.
yeah, and I feel we always see it when the people leave us, and then you see, oh, I was a huge fan and was and
Yeah,
was and
yeah.
was, and that I'm not a fan of that term was. So
Thank you. Yeah,
yeah, I
yeah,
like to
yeah.
do it while it's is. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So yeah, I just it was really cool, and it was special to me because the first week was more of my friends that I was
Yes.
able to do it, but the second week was people I've been fans of my whole life and don't really have a personal connection with. So I
Really
thought it was
cool.
cool that they all agreed without even
Yes.
really knowing what they were agreeing for. They just agreed on the premise that it was me asking them. So I thought
Right.
that was really cool and it was
Good.
really special.
Yes. Sort of
Yeah.
like this conversation right now.
Yeah, it is though. I
Yeah.
like anybody that asks if the time permits, I'm always down to
Well,
do this.
that's the thing with this time too, man. Like people aren't doing much, right? So I'm having conversation with people that like it would be talking to their people's people and waiting like
Mm,
months to get a response. And like, like we've had some big dogs in here in industries that you really don't think about, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
and I love it, man. So you're doing a great job with that. And
Thank
I
you.
think, DJ Mr. C was the one who said like, bring flowers while they're still alive, right?
Yeah,
Like, I love that analogy. I wrote that down in one of my posts. Like, we think so much about like honoring people when they die. Like, why don't we honor them while they're still alive? And
Yeah, and there's so many like, especially when people pass, there's an authenticity to it of people that genuinely love that person,
Yes.
and then there's the bandwagoners that are just like, oh, of course I love this person because it's the thing to do. Like when Nipsey was gone or Kobe was gone, or
Yes.
um, all of a sudden, 24 is the hottest selling jersey on the planet.
Right.
But why wasn't it when he was just retired? You know what I
Right.
mean? Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I can't I don't understand those theories. So yeah, I definitely think that people should be given their flowers while they're here. Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think, the older you get, I think the more you realize that, and
Yes.
especially in situations like this where people, unfortunately are passing and stuff around you, and especially with the COVID, seeing that the age went from, oh yeah, you can be 80 years older, that's when it affects you, and now it's like, no, you could be pretty much any age
Any
people are
age.
passing. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
So
equal
I think it
opportunists now.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
everybody's mindset has changed. Most people, for the most part, I would hope. And
Yes.
it just makes you realize that, yeah, you can pretty much go at any time. So, if you really appreciate someone, and I've made a conscious effort of doing this, like I've kind of done it all through my career. I've never been ashamed to tell man or woman if they're doing something great, that you're doing
Yes.
something great.
Right.
Um, but I just find now I'm physically reaching out to people that I normally don't have a personal connection with, and I'm just telling them I love what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. Just want you to know
Yes.
I'm a fan from the background and doing it,
Right.
and keep doing it. So, and I think
Absolutely.
more people need to do that.
And yeah, it doesn't matter how big you are. It always feels good when you get that, right? So,
Absolutely.
man, yeah, no, that's really good. And I've realized it too with doing these shows is that there are so many smart, talented people out there that are just doing their work in the background.
Absolutely.
And just because someone's famous doesn't mean that they're not, as good as the next person, right? So,
Well,
I
we know that there's prime examples of that. And I also think, like, again, now it's unfortunate that, like Instagram had taken away the number of likes and stuff on the pictures here in
yes.
Canada. But now, especially with this, seeing that streaming's become such a viable outlet for people,
Mhm.
now everybody's so focused on numbers again. It's like, oh, this guy only has this many people watching, and this guy has this many people watching.
Right.
But to me, I'm more impressed with the people performing for 2 to 4 people, 5 people, 10 people watching,
Yes.
because that means they're doing it for the right reasons. You know what I
Absolutely.
mean? So I think
Yes.
people again are getting so caught up in these numbers and stats and this and that, and you know what I mean? And it's unfortunate because, like you say, I prefer to watch the workhorse as opposed to the
Yes.
showboat. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I'm always
Yeah.
up for workhorse instead of showboat. So,
Yes.
and you see both.
You
You
do.
see
You do.
both are at an all-time high right now.
Yeah,
So it's
no
really
doubt.
just people have to keep their filters on and really choose to watch what they really believe in.
Speak like I do this like there's a million people watching. Like you
Mm-hmm.
put forth like your maximal effort like the world's watching.
Mm-hmm.
But then the flip side of that too is that there's a selfish side of me doing this too where I just want to meet people. Like I
Yeah.
just like getting to know people. That first date, tell me about yourself. I love hearing people's stories
Mm-hmm.
and I love highlighting like the man behind, in your case behind the turntables, right? So,
Well, what is your story? Tell me. Because
well,
we only
I'm a
connected through IG, right? So,
right, exactly. Well, I'm a man, like that's the question right there right off the bat is who are you, right?
mm-hmm.
I'm a personal trainer, like a movement specialist. So I do,
Mm-hmm.
sport conditioning. I love Pilates. I'm really passionate about getting men into Pilates right now. Focusing with basketball players,
Mm-hmm.
from house league players to guys in the NBA, just working with them and just letting people realize how amazing Pilates can be for their body. And then from there, like my background, I have a master's degree in counseling. So
Oh, okay.
so that's where this passion for just talking and hearing people's stories comes
Absolutely,
out of.
yeah.
But when you marry all these together, it just becomes this thing where I get to just have these conversations with people, and I think that it's important that we understand, the person behind what they do.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm mentoring people, when I'm talking with young people in the fitness industry, I always get them to realize that it's one thing to have a good service, to be crazy book smart, to have your master's in biomechanics or something, and it's another thing to be like compassionate and
Mm-hmm.
to be able to connect with people, to be authentic. So I like using this platform to just let people recognize like how, like what the personality is, because the person will stay with you. They'll sign up with you because you're good, but they'll stay with you because they actually like you.
Yeah.
You
Very
know what I'm
true.
saying?
Very,
So
very true.
yeah, so that's the whole thing with me is I love the Pilates thing, I love the movement specialist stuff, but I love business. I love connecting with people and just learning from different crafts how to get better and then how to give that out to people. So
Well, Monique is asking if you do yoga as well.
no, I prefer Pilates to yoga. Yoga's good, but I like the core connection with Pilates, so I'm not hating on yoga, but I think that,
Yeah,
Joseph
don't do
Pilates,
that.
yeah, I know.
You'll start an uproar in
I
here.
know. Yeah. Joseph Pilates was a man. He designed Pilates, for men initially,
Oh, really?
and oh yeah, 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 absolutely. So with that, over time, a lot of dancers came into it, and Romana and some of the people that he trained initially, you know, kept it going, kept the work going. So they did an amazing job with that. But in the middle of that, guys start to just drift away from it.
Mhm.
But when you look at some of the exercises, the way that they're designed and the way that they work on certain muscles, you can see that this is definitely with men in mind, in the way that improves your core strength or your posture, or your mobility. So that just became my passion. So as much as I loved yoga, I found that Pilates just resonated with me as an athlete, and that's how I just started to just run with it. So
Yeah, I think exercise in general is personal, just like music, right? It's just personal taste,
absolutely,
whatever suits you best. So, and what is
yes,
that funky yellow contraption behind you that's glowing?
that this here,
Oh yeah. Oh, it looked
yeah.
like a light. It looked like a light.
Oh yeah, no, this is just two of the apparatus. So that's the ladder barrel,
Oh,
and
okay,
then that's the chair. So
I
there's a
got
bunch.
you.
Yeah, so it's all.
It looked like a mini jukebox from the
No,
back.
oh, yes,
That's just my
that's
music mind.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
just
no
my
doubt.
music mind.
All right, man. So tell me more about the DJ, man. Like, how'd you get into it, and like, how'd you become like just like the household name in terms of?
Is that what I am?
That's you are, man. I called you Canada's DJ, man. Like, not to hate on the other guys. There's a lot of guys out there, but like, you say Scratch, people know who that is, right?
Well, that's a good thing. That shows that my hard work has been paying off.
Actually, case in point, I had to ask you what your name was, man. Like,
Yeah, I know, right?
like straight up, it's like your brand is big when people don't even know what your first name is. So
There's a good side to that too, though, I guess, right?
yeah, yes, yes,
And for those wondering, it is Mark. Simple,
yes.
plain. But yeah, I mean, DJing, I've been doing it since I'm about 16-ish. Out of 16, it's going into 17-ish.
Okay.
I'm born in Montreal, so I wasn't really hip to it till I got here. I moved here in '86 and I was 14.
Hmm.
So 2 years of just culture shock and music
Yes,
shock
yes,
by coming to Toronto from Montreal. Um, yeah, it was just something I just naturally gravitated to. I had gravitated to it by hearing it, but never seeing it. And then the first time I saw it, I was just super drawn to it.
yes,
And after that, I was like everywhere I went, whenever there was a DJ playing, I was just stuck to the booth. I was the creeper.
yes.
Um, I would just be standing there watching what they're doing, not knowing what they were doing, but just watching. I don't know what it was, but it was just maybe you could say
Mesmerized, eh?
yeah, I was just in a sense maybe I was meant this is what I was meant to do. But after that, I just started practicing as much as I could every single day. I'm way beyond 10,000 hours into this at this point. But yeah, it's just something I've always music in general has always been my biggest passion and my blood flow. And I'm glad I got into DJing because singing and all that stuff wasn't for me.
Yeah,
Couldn't do
yeah.
it.
No,
But I'm glad I found something that I was able to do and be as creative as I want to be with it, which is still the beauty of it to this day.
absolutely.
And yeah, I've, I don't know, it was really an awe moment for me. Like, and I'm glad I was able to, I, I, I was able to grab it, by the reins and run with it. And
Mhm.
thankfully, after years of hard work and nonstop aggression with it, it's
Yes,
finally it paid off, but not in a monetary sense. I mean, obviously, I'm able to make a living on it, but just paid off in the fact that I've never had to have an office job. I've never had to have a 9 to 5, and
yes.
I know I would be miserable in those kind of settings, and I don't really play well with others, and even since I'm young, I don't really deal well with people talking down to me and telling me what to do and
Mhm,
that stuff.
mhm.
So I think all those factors really made me push harder and wanted to be my own boss and you know obviously when you're young in the game and doing things, you have to work for other people and you have to be, in the clubs and working for others and so forth. But I was able to push past that. I think I didn't really have a long-term goal per se, but I had a personal long-term goal being that I don't want to be in a cubicle and I don't want, not that there's anything wrong with that stuff,
Right.
but it's not, I know it's
It
not for
wasn't your
me.
calling.
I
Yeah.
know it's not for me. I wouldn't be that guy. I
Mhm.
would be the guy that stands up in the middle and throws all the papers off his desk and runs out of the office. That would be me. So I
Yeah.
knew I wasn't able to do that stuff. So I'm glad I pushed hard enough and practiced hard enough to get myself to a level where I can not only sustain but to continue to build, which is a big thing, right? Sustaining and
Yes.
building is two totally different things.
Two
So
totally different things.
yeah.
Was there a time too? Because everyone grinds, right? Everyone gets to a point where they like something, they just grind. But was there a point where you recognize that you're actually good at this? Like if two people were doing the exact same amount of
Mm.
work, where you still recognized your separation from the next person. Like, did you get a sense of that?
I don't think I ever like said it to myself. And I'm not really one to deal with people blowing smoke up your ass either.
Yeah.
So let's get that out the way. But I think there was definitely a point where I realized I can do this. You
Yes.
know what I mean? But not, again, not saying I can do this and be, I'm 48 this year and you're talking to a 16-year-old or 17-year-old, being
Hmm.
that, in 30 years, yeah, I think you can do this and, and live off this. No,
Yes.
I
Yeah.
never thought of that. And because nobody was, at that point, there was no longevity to it, because
Right.
we're talking 86, 87, 88. So at that point, everything was still relatively fresh in a sense. Even
Yeah.
the OGs like the Jazzy Jeffs and stuff were still only, maybe at that point 10 years in the game.
Yeah.
So there was no really reference point for me to say that this was a positive, a realistic long-term goal.
Right. Right.
So I don't really know if I have a direct answer to your question, but I think
Hmm.
pretty early on I realized that I can do at least do something with this. You know what I mean?
Yes.
From I first started, uh, I was doing house parties for friends and high school dances, and I DJ'd my own prom and stuff like that, and
Yeah. Yeah.
things like that. So I think I knew early on that I don't have to work at McDonald's anymore, or
Yes.
yeah, like I did
Yeah.
those things. I had to be able to support records and so forth. So
Mhm.
I had, a lot of jobs when I was young, but again, it's like I went to work McDonald's, which was cool because it was all high school friends at that point.
Right.
Then I think I went to like Lime Ricky's.
Oh, I remember
Remember,
Lime
remember
Ricky's.
Lime Ricky's? Yeah,
Yes.
in
Yeah.
Saga.
Yeah.
But the only reason I went to go work there was because they had a DJ there every Saturday, I think, or Friday. They had like this little tube thing, and a DJ was in there, and I wanted to get in there. So I went
Yes.
to work there, and they were like, "You have to wash dishes. It's the only job available." And I was lasted 2 weeks, and I was like, "I'm done. I cannot do this." And then I
Yeah.
worked
Yeah.
at Mark's Work Warehouse for a bit, and like I had those jobs. But I mean, I've been working when I was, 10 years old. I had a
Mhm.
bike paper route when I was 9 or 10 in Montreal. So I've always been working. You know what I mean? I
Yes.
think that's part of it. That's in my nature as well,
Yes.
to be driven and to be, self-sufficient and just provide for myself, not depend on anybody. So I think that's been instilled in me for a long time,
Yeah. Shout out to Lime
obviously.
Ricky's. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
shout out to Lime Ricky's, right?
Yeah. Yes.
They had great Sundays. Remember those monster
I
Sundays they
remember
had?
those, man.
But yeah, so I don't think to answer your point again, I don't think there was a point where I sat and realized that I'm better than such and such, or maybe there's a reason I'm succeeding. I just really put my head down and just kept doing it. I've always been a kind of fly by the seat of your pants kind of guy, even today. Like most
Yes.
of my opportunities that have happened and come along have been because of just me working my ass off and being in the right place at the right time and always performing at 100%. And like a
Yes.
lot of those things are key factors that you hear. You always hear these taglines and cliche lines and things along life, but when you put them together, they can really make a difference. Like people will always tell
Absolutely.
you, like just like we spoke before when we first started, like you say, you love, you don't care if there's two people here or 1,000 people in here, and neither do I. And I've never been like that.
Mhm.
Um, and I've always performed like that. So if
Yes.
you've seen me play in a place where there's five people, or you see me play for 5,000 or 15,000, I'm still playing because some of my greatest opportunities have happened in those little small rooms and with those
Yes.
little amount of people. Because I forget who told me, but somebody had told me a long time, early on in my career, was do that. Like always play like there's 1,000 people in front, because you never know who that, there could be three people in there, but you don't know who those three people are.
Right.
What if one of those people is this guy or this guy or this guy? And
Mm,
I'm a living proof that it has been like that. There has been times where I've played for, a party for, and it wasn't a great party, not a great turnout, 40 people, but somebody important was there. And from that, I was taken and put into another platform and taken
yes.
and put into this. And so a lot of those things have happened because, obviously performance is always key. You could
Yes.
be a marketing machine, you know what I mean, and do everything, but people will catch on eventually. So performance is always key. And
Well,
if people, yeah,
sorry.
and people see passion and performance, they gravitate towards passion and performance.
Yes, exactly. And adding to that, a passion performance is integrity, right?
Yeah,
It
yeah,
really would.
absolutely. Like all these things go together, just like you said, like
Yeah.
how
Yes.
people will just gravitate to a personal attraction to it. And obviously, me being in the public eye, even though I'm not a fan of the public eye in general, I am in a sense, I'm an outgoing, but I'm an outgoing introvert. So it's
Yes.
like, yeah, it's like when
Yes.
there's nobody around, I kind of curl in a corner. When
Yeah.
there's two people much around, like I'm cool in certain surroundings, but
Yes.
um, I'm a personal person, and I think that comes across as well. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
all these things just go along. They really do go a long way with whatever it is you're doing in anything you do. Anything. You could
Absolutely.
be, the guy picking up our garbage in the front, but I do go out and I talk to them on occasion, and some of them are just a-holes because you could tell they're miserable in their job. Then
Hmm.
you'll get the one guy that's super cool, and we sit and we'll chat for a minute.
Yeah.
And next time he comes out, every time he comes out, it's hey, 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 and the other guys just let him go. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. That's life.
people catch on to misery, and misery, unfortunately, is addictive, right? So it's like
Right. Yeah.
positive people don't want to be around miserable people.
No, it's true. It's true. Can you go back to the mental health piece for a minute?
Hmm.
What made you attracted to just talking about addressing the mental health component of this?
Myself,
Yeah.
it's something I've been dealing with for pretty much my whole career, but not knowing it.
Okay.
And it was just, I didn't drink early on I didn't drink until my 20s. I still when I started drinking. Um, but it was just a bad pattern of, 20 years of punishing myself and putting myself through so much hell and all that stuff. And I just reached my breaking point. Now it's probably, yeah, 2018, the end of 2018.
Okay.
I had a series of just bad breaking points and my rock bottoms, as I called them. So,
Yes.
um, which I is what I hope it was.
I know, right?
I hope it's not coming. Um, yeah, so I just reached, and my to anybody that doesn't know, my basic pattern was, I would go out and I suffer from bad anxiety, performance anxiety, which can be crippling at times, especially when it have to be, your job is to be in front of people
Yes,
and
the
perform for
performer.
people. Yeah,
Yes.
at
Yeah.
all times. It was tough, but I never really knew what was happening with me for years. It took me literally like 20 years to figure this out.
Wow.
Just because I would filter myself, put up a fence with just drinking every time I would play and drink and drink and drink, and to the point where that anxiety filter was just gone now.
Yes.
And I did this for 20 something years. Like I'm definitely lucky to be alive. You know what I mean?
Mm.
I really am. Like there's been certain times where, I've mashed up my cars a couple times. Like
Wow. Yeah.
it's been so many signs that were just like stop, stop, stop. And I just kept
Yes.
doing it and
You just
doing it and doing
ignored
it
them.
because I
Yeah.
didn't know any different. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
I didn't know anybody that was going through or had spoken to me about this at any time. So um, it was just a really bad pattern of destroying myself, mentally and physically for years and punishing myself and years and years and years. And I reached my breaking point and I had just done, I was in Montreal. I did a party. It was a small party and I just got totally mashed and destroyed. And the reason I did was because when I got there, I was already like, anytime I go to a party, even just when I'm at home and getting ready to go to a party, like I'm
Yes.
so tense and I feel sick, and this is every single time. So I got to Montreal and we get in this party. It wasn't a big party, maybe like, a couple of 200 people or whatever.
Mhm.
But it was my boy who brought me down, another DJ. And when I was there, um, he started telling me like, yeah, and I got so many DJs coming tonight, and I'm telling them, get your pad and pen ready, and they all want to meet you, and blah blah blah. So every
Oh
time
boy.
words are talking, I could just feel
Yes.
my levels just
Mounting,
going.
mounting. Yeah.
Yeah, I could just
Yeah.
feel it, and I was getting so tense, and and then the first thing I turned, I was like, yo, when's the bottle coming? And he's like,
Mm.
okay, I gotta, but it was early. He's like, you want to start? I would say, yeah, I need to drink now. And I started drinking, 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 played my whole set, which is the incredible thing over the years is that, I was so out of it, or to the point, like endless time, probably, I would say probably 70% of the times people heard me play,
Yes.
that I don't even remember playing songs after like midnight or something. Like I would wake
Yeah.
up the
Eh?
next morning. Yeah, I would wake up. I'm fully functional, fully have, interacting
Yes.
with everybody, playing my music, and
Right.
not shitting. Not, oh, sorry to curse in the morning.
No.
Not crapping the bed
Yeah.
while I'm performing,
Yes.
and going home, waking up the next day, and people are like, "Yo, you killed it last night, and it was great." And I was like, "Oh, okay, thank you."
Okay.
To the
Right.
point where I would actually have to go into my computer and look back at what I played and be like, oh man, oh wow, okay, wow, whoa. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like literally,
Yeah.
and this is like literal stuff that I was doing for like 20 years. You
20
know what I mean? Like
years. That's
of just, like I
insane.
say,
Yeah.
just punishing myself. So um yeah, I got that Montreal gig was finished, and I got on the plane, and you know how short that flight is.
Yes.
And it was like 7, my flight was 7, because I don't really like to hang in cities after I've worked. I like to
Right.
get home. So I was still drunk when I got on the plane. I don't know why WestJet let me on, but not stumbling drunk again, but just like you could tell.
Just not clear, right? Just
Yeah, and
foggy still.
I was so hurt and mad at myself for just doing it again, and again
Yes.
and again. And I don't know what it was, why that particular instance got me, and I think I just felt guilty about flying home to my family, my kids, and walking
Mm.
in and them seeing this. And
Yes.
I think the guilt just slaughtered me. And as before we left on the tarmac, I just took out my phone, and it was frustration and everything. And I just started typing on my page. I found a picture that just kind of described what was in my head. It was like anxiety, and all these
Yes.
words just mixed and matched, like everything that was like in my face at that time,
Yes.
anger, fear, everything. And I just started typing and typing, and I was like, I don't even remember particularly what I wrote, but it was just basically saying I need help, in a sense. Like, to sum it all
Yes.
up, was I need help.
Right.
This is
Right.
what's
Right.
been going on. I don't know what's happening, blah blah blah. I hit my thing, and then we left. Turned off my phone, turned on my phone, and I had like hundreds of messages. And my
Mhm.
mom's calling me, and like everybody's calling, like, are you okay? Are you going to kill yourself? And I didn't even remember what I wrote. So I had to kind of
Mm.
sit back. I sat in the car, and I reread what I wrote, and I left it there, because I was like, yes, this is exactly how I feel. You know what I mean?
Yes.
This
Yes.
is real. Like, I could have pulled it back, but I was like, you know what? Maybe this is what I needed, and I need to kind of put it
Yes.
out there
Put it out
and
there. Yeah.
make myself
Yes.
accountable. But now, just like, the thing is, like, nobody, when I say nobody knew, my wife knew to an extent, but not even like
Not the
that. Like,
magnitude of it.
nothing. And like, even the people that stand beside me for years and years, like literally stand beside me, my partners and stuff,
Yeah.
nobody knew. Like, everybody was like, what is happening here? And I was like,
Yes.
okay, now I have to go back and to explain to people, like, remember this party, and remember this party, and remember this event where I said I couldn't play because I didn't feel well, and remember this party when I got extra, drunk, and remember when I did this, and they're all like, yeah. And I was like, okay, well, now I had to go back and do this to myself. So I had to come home and sit after I spoke with my wife and stuff, and we went through it. I assured her that I'm not suicidal, and I'm not, this is
You're
not,
right.
that wasn't my point.
Right.
um but it's a hard thing to distinguish, like when
Yes.
somebody puts out, that they're in trouble, people's first instincts are, what's going to happen? Like, what is
Right.
this person talking like this? What's
Yes.
wrong? I don't know how to deal with this.
Mhm.
And that was, we'll get into that. But so after that, I came back and I really had to just replay my career in my head and just be like,
Mhm.
okay, well, and now I remember all these things, and this is why it happened. Still not really knowing. I mean, I self-diagnosed myself with that title,
Yes.
um, and I know it is what it is,
Mhm.
but I self at that time I just self-diagnosed. I was like, it's not butterflies. Like butterflies are one thing. This is
Right.
this is
This
something
is
else.
deeper. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we came home and my wife just sat me down and she's just like, you need to make a choice. This is plain and simple. Even though it's not plain and simple in theory, it's plain and simple that you make a choice. You're either going to do this as you want to be Scratch for the rest of your life, or do you want to be, professional Scratch and be family Mark? You know what I mean?
Mm.
Because you cannot be both.
Yes.
You cannot
Right.
keep going out and doing this. You're ruining yourself, and it's not going to end well. And I, at that point, made that decision that day, just cold turkey, and I said, I'm done. I'm done with it,
Wow.
and that was it. So this is,
Yes.
years and years and years of just, again, I'll use the word punishing because that's exactly what it was,
Hmm. Yeah.
of punishing my mind and my body, and I just quit it cold turkey. And then what happened was, I think it was too cold turkey for my mind and my body. That the next few times I went out, I had a worse experience, being that the anxiety, now it was like, the anxiety was hidden behind these doors all this time and was like,
Yes.
okay, I can't get out. I can't get out. Why does this guy
Yes.
keep drinking? It won't let me out. And
Hmm.
then I stopped. So the following week, I had my reggae party and I didn't drink. And the anxiety just came and literally slapped me down, like to the
Just
point
wreaked havoc, eh?
it to the something I'd never experienced before. And it was literally, I was frozen. Like when I say frozen, like I was literally frozen. It was me. Thank God it was me and another DJ playing. And he was playing early. And then he's like, okay, you're ready. And in my mind, I was like, yeah, of course I got this. It's easy. It's my party.
Yes.
And I went to put my hand on my computer and I couldn't move. And my hand just started shaking. And my body got so tense and I couldn't move. And I literally just turned my head to him and I leaned into him and I said, I can't do this. And he's like, what's wrong? And I was like, remember that post I did last week? And he's like, yeah.
Mm.
I said, I can't move. And I said, watch my hand. Like, I can't. It literally froze me. And I stood beside him and he was amazing, my friend Specs.
Yeah.
And he just said, don't worry, I got this. And he's like, just go outside. But
Hmm.
then my friends now, and see, this is the other part of it, is that when you make yourself so public and vulnerable, you
Yes.
think, like in your mind, and because anxiety is all mind, you think that everybody is like, now everybody's staring at you and everybody. So in my eyes, it was the whole club was turning and looking, staring at me, which made
Yes.
they weren't, but in my mind they were. So in my mind, they were like, everybody was staring at me and pointing and laughing. And these are the things that are going on in my mind.
Yes. Wow. Yeah.
And I said, I don't want to go outside because A, I don't want to attract attention to myself. And I need just my time and space.
Need
But
space.
I just stood beside him for 4 hours straight while he played, and I was just breathing and breathing, and I was so tense, and my fist was literally clenched, and my chest was so tight, and I was so exhausted the next day when I woke up. So when I woke up the next morning, like I went home and I was just destroyed. I didn't talk to anybody when I left, and
Hmm.
I was so destroyed because I didn't know what was happening anymore. And
Yes.
I woke up the next morning and I just started crying and my wife came in, she's like, what's wrong? What's happening here? And because at this point everything's still fresh, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And she's
Yes.
like, what's happening? And I was like, I think I'm done. And she's like, what do you mean? I said, I think my career is over. I think I'm done. You know what I mean? I didn't know what to do anymore. I was like, this is what happened. And she's like, like, and that reaction right there, I was like, nobody knows what to say. You know what I mean? Like,
Right. Right. Yeah.
and that's a big problem. You know what I mean? And it's not to wrong anybody, because if anybody came to me with this, I wouldn't have known what to say.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I just sat and I started crying and I was like, I don't know what's happening. And I explained what happened. I was like, I froze and I can't think and nothing. nothing is right now. And she said, you know,
Yes.
things are going to take time. And I was like, I get that, but unfortunately, I don't have time.
And
You
it's
know what
like,
I
what
mean?
about
Like
right now, right?
I
Like,
can't, it's not
yeah.
even right now, but it's like I'm a public person. Like,
Yes.
how can I have time? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, what
Right.
am I supposed to do? I have to be out there. I have to make money to support the house. You're like, I have to do these things. How can I take time? I can't just disappear and pull myself out the game. What am I going to do? And then, you know, we just sat, we talked, and I kind of replayed it. It happened a few more times to me in a row, and it just became a thing where I had to physically learn how to deal with something that I
Yes.
had no clue of how to deal with. And I still don't. You know what I mean? It's not to say it's gotten better. Sometimes it still comes and whips my ass. And sometimes it's tolerable. And sometimes
Right.
it's always there. It's something that definitely doesn't disappear. And I've tried, you know, I tried the therapy and I did therapy for a few sessions, but then I had to go away. We went to Dubai for like 3 months. And then when I came back, I didn't do it again. You know what I mean? And
Right. Yes.
I've just been doing different things to change what I perceive, you know, were maybe triggers, but even
Right.
that I don't know anymore. But I mean, the main thing is that in my mind, I know I'll get to where I need to be, and I know I'll get to where I should be.
Yes.
But I haven't been happy, you know what I mean, since that time. I haven't enjoyed what I've been doing per se. You know what I mean? Like
Absolutely.
everything is still forced. Like people see me on live streams and stuff, like they have no clue what my Saturday leading up to 7 p.m. is like. You know,
I
if I
can
got my wife on here,
imagine.
if I got my
Yeah.
wife on
Yeah.
here, she would tell you. You know what I mean? Like my
Yes.
Saturdays, unfortunately, in the daytimes are miserable because I'm so stressed.
You so
I feel
yeah. Yeah.
sick. Like I can't eat for like 3 hours before. That's why people are all like, I can't believe you stand up there for 6, 7 hours and don't go to the washroom and don't eat and stuff. I was like, I can't. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Like I
Yes.
can't.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
actually, it's stuff I cannot do. Like,
Yeah.
and it's really hard. And that's the unfortunate thing is it's really hard for people to understand. So it's like even when I put it out there publicly and you know just I just basically threw myself on the street and was
Yes.
watching cars fly by me at the highest speed, like I was standing on the 401 and everything's
Yes.
whizzing by and just standing by myself. That's exactly how I felt.
Right.
And nobody knew how to stop the car and talk to me at that point. So it's like even
Mm.
my best friends were like, you know,
Wow.
kind of just like trying to poke me and be like, are you okay? Are you
Yes.
okay?"
Yes.
Because they didn't know. And they would ask me like, what can I do? And I was like, I don't even know what you can do, to be honest. Like I have no clue.
It's like that car that's stranded on the side of the road. You kind of you slow down, but you don't stop. You good, and you kind of keep going, but never actually come to their aid.
Yeah. And I mean, don't get me wrong. The support has been incredible. And
Yes.
the more important thing, I mean, this long story is leading up to your question about why the mental health, um,
Yes. Yes.
but I mean, it was just the outpouring of support was amazing,
Yes.
and it also opened another door, being that so many people came to me with stories, and people I know personally, and people I don't
Yes.
know, and people that I know that are, you know, on a higher level than I am.
Hmm.
We're reaching out to me and being like, thank you so much. I've never been able to talk about this stuff. And a lot of them
Yes.
still haven't. You know what I mean? A lot of them will
Hmm.
still
Hmm.
message me on the side and
Yes.
DM me and stuff. I mean, which is as long as if I can be an outlet for somebody, I'm happy with that.
Right. Right.
So all these things just led me to and people were just feeding me out like they're doing in here, which is
Like
great.
they're doing here. Yeah.
People have advice and this and
Hmm.
that. And obviously and nothing works for everybody. We all know that
No.
or not everything works for people. You know what I mean? You have to. It's trial and error with everything.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Um, and it was just I was inundated with so much information, and people were like, "Do this, do this, do this, do this."
Hmm.
And I was
Hmm.
like,
Hmm.
"Whoa!" I was like, "Whoa!
Yes.
This is too much for me right now. I don't even know what any of these things are. First of all, you know
Right.
what I mean? And none of these things were in my practice already. So this was all brand new stuff to me. So I was like,
Yes.
hold on a second. I said, while I'm going to try to process all this information, I'm going to reach out to whoever is deemed to be a specialist in all these different categories.
Hmm.
Ranging from nutrition to, you know, Reiki to yoga to meditation to like whatever it was, CBDs and all this other stuff that people were throwing at me. I was like, I'm going to find a specialist from each category and
Hmm.
I'm going to put this in a public forum rather than me
Yes.
just sitting there learning for myself. I said, while I'm learning, I might as well put this out there to all these people that are reaching out to me. Like they obviously want help
Yes.
and need help, and I need help and want help. So
Yes.
why not just put it out there and let's all learn together instead of
Okay.
me trying to take in information and then turning around and spitting out the wrong information back to people
Yes.
because I'm
Yes.
not knowledgeable enough about it. You know,
Right.
music, sure, I can do one-on-ones with music all day, but
Right.
all this other stuff,
This is a new
you know what I
frontier, man.
absolutely. And I didn't
Yes.
know. So I was just like, well, how do I turn this into something where we can all learn? So I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to put on this event. The show must go on was just a title that I had in my head to
Yes.
represent this because it represents me the best. It's like nobody knew what
Yes.
I was going through and the show had to go on. I always had to perform.
Yes. Right.
So, and I'm not alone. And it goes in, and you don't
You're
have to be a DJ
absolutely.
for that to make sense.
Nope.
It goes in
Right.
anything. You go out to your office job day to day and you're struggling, you have to put on a happy face and around you. You know what I
Mar
mean?
Man, I used to say that for years when I was going through some
Hmm.
personal struggles. I used to say game face on,
Yeah.
right? Like it just, and it would be one of those things where I'd leave my home where I wasn't happy and I go to
Hmm.
work and then I'd see my clients, I'd be happy with them and all those different things. So you put that game face on, you get through
Yeah.
your day, you do your job the best that you can, and then you get home and then you kind of just sit there for a moment.
Yeah. And it's a terrible
And then
thing.
it's a
It's
terrible
a,
thing,
it,
man.
it's a terrible because all we're doing is just putting a mask on, right? You put the mask
Right.
on. It's like the masked singer. You put the masked singer because no, you don't want to know. You don't want to know who's under there. You know
Right.
what I mean? And
Right.
and the crazy thing with me is, you know, people are coming to me to hear me play so they can rid themselves of that and
Yes.
put their mask on, not
Right.
knowing that the guy giving them that freedom and release has the biggest mask on probably. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, and
it's pretty crazy thing to think about.
it is, but I read a book where they talked about that concept as a leader.
Hmm.
And really, Mark, you are a leader, and to look at it from the perspective of being a wounded healer,
Hmm.
right? Like
Yeah.
we don't come to this being perfect. We have our own scars. We're
Hmm.
walking with a limp while we go out there and help people,
Absolutely. But I mean,
and
I think the difference is though you're walking with a limp without a visible limp. You know what I mean? I think it's
yes,
different. I think it's different when people
yes,
can see you limping.
right.
But you know, when you're not visibly limping at that point, nobody
You don't,
knows.
no one knows, and no one gives you that
Nobody knows. And
compassion.
no, and it's not like it's a wide open subject. It still is to a sense a taboo subject.
It's
You
so
know what I mean?
taboo.
Especially, you know, especially being a guy and especially being in the music industry and especially, you know, being someone known per se. You know
Yes,
what I mean?
yeah,
Like all these things were X's against me, but I was just like, I don't care. Like I said,
good.
I've never really been one who really particularly cared about what others think of me because it doesn't really affect me that much. I say
Yes,
that, but it still does. You know what I mean? But you try, for the most part, it
you
does.
play it
But
off. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, you play it off. But yeah, it just I don't know. I just something I it didn't bother me even when I put it out there and I saw how people were kind of look or treating me differently,
Hmm.
not badly, just
No,
awkwardly.
right.
It's
Yeah, because
because it is an
it's
awkward.
awkward.
It's awkward.
It
It of
is. It
course
is.
it's
It is.
awkward, and I fully get that. And it's awkward for
Yes.
me even talking to people because when I talk to people now, it's I'm thinking in my head what I think I know they're thinking, but obviously it's in my head. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
it's in my head, and I'm like, they probably must think I'm some weirdo and I'm a broken piece of furniture now and all this stuff. But this is all in my head, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
it's a hard thing to get over because you have to learn, and I still don't, but you just have to. I mean, it's all we know. It's all mental,
Yes.
but the mind controls everything. Your mind controls
Yes.
everything. So
Right.
it's like you're fighting. You know, I'm in the Wizard of Oz fighting the Oz, basically.
Right. Right. Man, thank you everyone for all your comments here. Like I can't, man, it's gonna take forever to get through all these comments. So you guys have given so many awesome suggestions and words of encouragement and love and appreciation. Um, so I don't want to by any means, pretend that we're ignoring what you guys are saying out there. Um, but Mark, one of the things that we've been talking about, and we didn't actually say the word, but you totally hit on it, is courage.
Hmm.
When you put these things out there, that takes courage because, I mean, it's one thing to just be a man and say, I don't care what people think. But the reality is, you put it out there. And
Yeah,
now it's out there in that public forum for people to, you know,
never
the
never
best
to
you can,
turn back on. It can't
yeah,
be turned around anymore.
you can't, yeah, you can't take it back. people are going to, be well intended and give you 6 million suggestions on what to do, and
Hmm.
yeah,
Absolutely.
it's
I'm
no,
listening. Sorry, I'm just trying to. I had to
no,
move because my wife is putting the baby to sleep. So.
oh, do your thing, man. Um, Yes, we have to learn to love even those broken pieces.
Hmm.
Pat here saying it's hard to self-diagnose. Hard to self-diagnose, like you said. If you have a limp or sore muscles, you can try and figure out what's wrong. It's hard to do that if you're not sure what's going on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree fully.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Taking off the mask is the hardest thing. Fun Fit Mom is saying, yeah. Do you
It
have
is, and I mean the support.
sure,
Like I say, the support has been incredible, and I don't know if I would have been able to persevere without it. Honestly,
right?
sorry for moving around. I'm just trying to do two things at once here.
It's all good, man. You can do 10 things there. It's like, and I love this is the reality of our lives right now. Everyone's locked in
I
their
know,
homes.
right?
Like your life's got to go on, right?
Kids first,
And
always.
for Twig, yeah, yeah. Twig was saying like, please save this live. I want to forward it. Absolutely. I do this on Core Conversations on Facebook. There's a group page there where I save this. I'll like, you know, put this all together, highlights, and it'll be there for us to continue the conversation because these are some nuggets,
It's
man.
needed.
Like this is life,
I
right?
love it.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love that
It
you're
really
using your
is.
platform as well.
Thank you. I feel it's I think yeah, I think people need to do this. As men, like, we need to be that much more authentic,
Yep.
with our lives and not just front like everything is perfect. Kintsugi. And when there was a time in my life when I was really, really broken with a lot of things that were happening, and my wife sent me this image of a bowl. And in Japanese culture, they have this tradition where you have a bowl, let's say like a white bowl, and they'll intentionally break the bowl, and then they'll glue it back together. But in the glue, they'll put golden flakes.
Okay.
So when you glue the bowl back together, you see the cracks. You see where it was broken and now it's put back together,
Hmm.
right? So now you
I
have this
like that.
bowl that's put
Hmm.
back together and it's fully whole, but you can see the cracks. And not only are the cracks visible, but there's glory in those cracks. There's gold in those cracks. So now you have a bowl that's stronger because it's been repaired, but it doesn't take away the fact you're not hiding the fact that there's cracks.
I like that. That's cool.
Yeah, it was so liberating for me when she gave me that. Like I was like, that is my life where it's been broken and now it's put back together and it's stronger now that it's been put back together. And there's no shame in the fact that it was broken.
Yeah, I actually really like that. You got to send me that on the side,
Yeah,
on a sidebar. That's
absolutely.
awesome.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I might change
I
my
made a
DJ name
post
to
one time.
that now. I'm gonna change my DJ name to that. DJ Kintsugi
DJ
from now on.
Kintsugi. Yeah,
That's it.
yes.
I love that.
Yeah, yeah. Gee, that was so liberating for me, and that's exactly where you're at, where there's such a courage that takes to do it, and there's no shame in what you've gone through, man, to just come to this place of like none of us have arrived either, right? That's the other
Mhm.
piece of this is that this is a continuing journey.
Absolutely. I'm fully with you on that. And I
Yeah.
don't, I've never at any point in my career felt that I've hit the ceiling. You know what I mean? Which is, I think is a big thing because I think that's a terrible feeling to have too, when you just feel that you've reached your limits and your capacities. But I've never felt
Yes.
that. And I think I've proven that I haven't continuously. So I don't know what's
Yes.
ahead, but I do know that just in working hard and treating your craft with respect and respecting the people watching you and respecting what you do will
Yes.
will keep
Ignored.
us. And it's a proven fact. And I'm like I say, I'm living proof of all these
Yeah.
things I'm talking about.
Evidence right there.
Anything I'm speaking about, I've lived and
Yes.
continue to live. So it's not like I'm trying to preach from a book that I haven't practiced yet. I'm preaching everything I practice. I'm practicing what I preach.
And then even just more recently, your post about just like recalibrating family work-life balance,
Mm.
pulling back to like, I love that, man. Like that's like just so much respect for you and those things that a
Yeah,
lot of us
again,
don't
I
have the
think my
courage to
my wife my wife has a lot to do with that. I got the cussing. I got another cussing.
Yes.
Just being the same thing. It's like, I mean, she knows what I do and what I think. It's more when I'm not scratch, how do I turn off the scratch filter? So, which is
Yes.
a tough thing to do because it's so easy to get caught up because now since everything is online now. So it's not like I'm driving to work and when I come
Yes.
home, then I can fully pull myself out the game for a day and do
Hmm.
that. Now it's like
Hmm.
everything I'm doing is in my house. So every
Right.
time I'm working is in my house. Therefore, my brain never stops in the first place.
Right.
Um,
Yes.
and my wife always makes fun of me. She says even when I'm sleeping, like my foot is literally like tapping to music while I'm sleeping.
Yes.
Um,
My wife does
so
the same, man.
yeah,
I'm cueing people Pilates and telling people to rise up and put
yeah,
their heels together. Like you live it, right?
yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's all it's instilled in your brain. So
Mhm.
um, yeah, it's a hard thing to balance and to take yourself out. And it was the same thing. My wife was like, this is ridiculous now. It's like you're not putting your phone away, I've never been that guy that lived on my phone, and I'm not like a social media whore or anything, but it's just I've never been that guy. So it's like I knew she was right. It's not like it's something I can argue. It's like,
Yes.
when my 5 and 6 year olds are coming up to me like, Daddy, can you put your phone away so we can play? It hurts. It really hurts.
Yes. Yes.
I almost dropped a 10:50 in the morning F-bomb because it really hurts.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yes.
and it was all those things. It was all those things, and I just had to be like, "That's enough." You know what I mean? And I knew I dropped the ball. And again, I'm not writing these things to get people to be like, "Oh, it's okay,"
Pity.
or
Yeah.
public validation. I don't need public validation.
Yeah.
I'm really putting it out there. The same reason with the mental health stuff, why I never hold back, is because I know I'm not the only one, and I know there's tons of people out there. Just like how you said it resonated with you, and I had a lot of people message me on the side and be like, you know, yeah, I'm going through exactly the same thing. But if
Yes.
nobody puts it out there, then, I mean, everybody just living in silence. And that
Yes.
suffering in silence thing is something I hold dear because I did it for so long. Although I didn't
Mm.
really know what I was suffering from, I did do it in silence, and I didn't talk about it, and it got worse. And that goes with
Yes.
anything. So I just anything now that I find to be important, and I know if I know I'm not the only one, I'll always put it out there. I'm very open with
Yes.
that stuff because I'm just tired of, you know, people trying to hold up a certain persona or people trying to be, looked at in a certain light and so forth. I just think
Yes.
it's all BS. And I just hope
Yes.
people will eventually come to that realization that what you're seeing on your phone is not real. You know what
It's
I
not
mean?
real, right? And and to flip that over, I have to say, Mark, that vulnerability is true strength.
Hmm.
It is
I
true
learned that
strength.
now. I learned that now. And again, I'm not doing it for that purpose, but
Nope.
I definitely realize it now. Like I realize, yes, words have powerful meanings. And you know what I mean? Just simple
Hmm.
saying hi to someone or checking in on people, like which is also something I've been doing a lot now. It's
Yes.
just, sending random messages to people I would never message before and just being like, you good? You okay? And these are people that have
Yes.
reached out to me in my time of struggle and were like, are you okay? So now that,
Mm.
there's a lot of people living alone in these times and feeling extra alone in these times. So I try to reach out to certain people and be like, are you okay? You good? And just those two little
Yes.
words mean tons
They
to
do.
a
They
lot of
do.
people.
They do. So good. Man, it's
I
like
know we're gonna hit the IG ceiling. I can't
it
stand
does.
IG for this stuff.
No, let's, yeah, we're trying to stay away from that topic altogether.
I
Just to,
know, right?
yeah, yeah. But it's good, man. Man, thank you so much, Mark. Man, like this has been so rich, like so rich. I loved having you on today. Let's keep this conversation going. Let me know what's
Absolutely.
going on. Let me know what's going on with the mental health side. I'm glad to be, part of that
Yeah,
and help out with any way I can.
we're definitely going to talk about that. I'm going to be bringing it back. I needed to take 2 weeks off to clear my mind and spend more time with the kids and stuff. So,
Yes,
not this week, but next week, maybe I'll try to bring it back and then we'll definitely be talking.
cool. You're a good man.
I'm just trying to do what I can.
I'm gonna sign you off here and just talk to everyone. Thanks
All
so
right.
much, Gamer. All right, man.
Good.
Take care.
Have a good day, guys.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Core Conversations. This organic platform has been made possible by amazing people like yourself. So if you're a Pilates instructor or a movement specialist of some kind and you want to be a guest, please message me. If you're in some other field and the messages just resonate with you, message me. I'd love to have you on. All of our messages connect, and for some reason, they all help us in this battle. We're all in this game together, so I'd love to hear from you. Let your words be life to someone else. Check out our website, personalvictory.ca. Click the Core Conversations page to see who our upcoming guests are, and I will see you next time on Core Conversations.